All right, everybody. Talking Grit interview time. We're going to talk to Stephanie Stradley. She wants to be called Steph. We're on a friendly basis here on this show. So, Steph, when I talked to her, I said, "How do you want to be described?" She goes, she's self-described as hard to describe when she told me. So she's does a lot of stuff. She's a Texans writer for the Houston Chronicle, long time. We are glad to have you on the show, Steph. How are you?
I'm great. I'm really excited about this game. Like this is the game of the week. It's Sunday Night Football. There's a lot of years where the Houston Texans didn't have primetime games because we're the newest franchise, but yet there's Texans all over the globe and into space. So there's a lot of people excited about this season because, Texas is football. I mean, no offense, your head coach is Texan.
Mhm.
Aaron Glenn is a very favorite Texan from the early days where they were having to overcome a lot of things. So yeah, very excited for Sunday Night Football. And, most of the Texans games are noon kickoffs, which can be a challenge with tailgates. And some of us are pretty good with our breakfast tacos in the morning, but a nighttime tailgate in Houston, Texas is very special. And I can't wait to see it. And
Yeah.
just also the game.
Yeah, no, there's going to be a game after the party, huh? All right, cool.
Well, and
Uh,
hopefully, no offense to y'all, but like when the Texans win, the post game party is also good. Unfortunately, there have been so many close wins, which, it's nice when it's close wins, but the Texans have had so many close wins this season that the parking lots are packed after the game because everybody stayed till the
yeah.
end. So it's like, oh no, we have to stay in the parking lots and wait for the traffic to go away. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, well, we
you
do when
always
you're
look
on
on the
the
bright
parking
side of
lot.
that.
Yeah. Um, so when we have a guest on the show, Steph, I do extensive
Uh
research
oh.
about the guests. I vet them.
Borderline stalking.
Yeah, I just want to be prepared, right? And
You're gonna
so,
see here in a second.
yeah.
Uh oh.
So I saw that you were on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. All right.
Yes.
Okay, good. It looked just like you and it had the same name, so I'm on track. Okay. I just want to tell you, you're not going to need a lifeline for any of these questions. I think you'll be
Oh, good.
good.
Well, that actually might be the first time that a Texan fan self-identified as a Texan fan on a TV show,
Okay.
because that was actually filmed in 2001, and the first season wasn't until 2002.
Okay.
So there's
Wow.
this new team called the Houston Texans. And actually, for many years, there were people that were like, Houston Texans, is this a thing? And it's like, yeah, there's this thing called the NFL, and this is the latest team, and we're Houston. And we didn't create our particular history because our history was taken unceremoniously by jackasses in the 90s. But
Mhm.
now we are creating our own history, and it's been really fun to kind of have it's weird seeing a franchise start from the beginning because, how old is the Lions? It's been around for a while.
1934 is when we moved to Detroit, so it's been
So,
a while.
it's weird being in the first generation. And if you look at the first generation of a lot of teams, the Steelers were really sorry for a long, long time before they were good. I don't have that time to wait. Like, I would like for them to be good in 2024 because, as you know, it's no fun watching bad football.
Oh, yeah.
We know all too well.
A little bit too much, actually.
Yeah.
Yes.
I imagine last year was a pleasant surprise for Texans fans. With the rookies and everything, with having the success. So, how has it been as a fan to come into greater expectations this year?
Well, that is a curious question to me because when D'Amico Ryans was hired and he said all the things that he was going to do, and the first thing that he said he was going to do is hire a professional staff of teachers that have good experience in the NFL, like varied experience. And so you have older people and younger people and lots of NFL experience at their particular roles. And to me, I had watched that camp very closely, hit the first camp. And the first camp, when I saw CJ Stroud, it was just kind of a little bit like that, and you don't want to have too high hopes on depending on a lot of rookies. But my first year writing for the Houston Chronicle, That was D'Amico Ryan's first year as a linebacker. Now, linebacker is a position that if you're good at, you can get really good at it fast. And he was Rookie of the Year. So he has, or Defensive Rookie of the Year. And so he has experience knowing that rookies, if given any kind of opportunity and good teaching, can thrive right away. Now, not everybody is D'Amico Ryan's, but his expectations were really high. That camp was pretty amazing. Now, that was a last place schedule. They had the second pick in the draft, and then they got the third pick in the draft. So they got actually two of the projected, maybe 6 elite players in that draft, because they weren't going to be like, we're going to stay patient. Like, no, NFL careers are really short. People want to win, and that was a serious camp. And that team, it did not surprise me that team played well, because they have a lot of the elements that you would want to see in winning football. They have supportive ownership that lets the football people do the football, like the anti-Jerry Jones thing. Then they had, Nick Caserio was in a bad situation when he first got here because of kind of holes that were digged out from people before. So Nick Caserio, though, is a very experienced GM, and he can do, he knows everybody. He can make all sorts of transactions. D'Amico Ryan's a very well-respected guy. I like the staff. I liked some of the players that they already had that were hard workers, but maybe weren't in the best situations. And then they added a lot of people. Now, if we're going to this year, you don't have the 4th place schedule. You have the 1st place schedule. You happen to be playing a very strong, it turns out, NFC North, and a lot of good defenses in the NFC North. And as all coaches will say, you can't project, hey, you did this last year, you're going to do it this year. So every year is different. And this is a year that they have been challenged with some significant injuries, like all teams. But you probably don't want Nico Collins, who is, led the league in receptions, going down with a hamstring. It's been unfortunate to see what happened with Stephon Diggs, who's shown a lot of leadership with the team, and he's out with an ACL injury for the whole year. And so they have been dealing with challenges. They still have a pretty decent record despite those challenges. They haven't been very good on the road. They have been pretty good at home. And they're hoping that the home situation's a little better for dealing with their offensive line, because they did the most challenging thing that you could do, which is, they had an inexperienced quarterback meshed with an inexperienced center, and then also an inexperienced left guard, all at the same time. Now, that is taking on a challenge, and there's been times in the season where they haven't been able to do it. And so right now, where the Texans are on offense is really, can they handle pressure? And the teams are going to keep showing unorthodox pressures until the Texans can show that they can deal with it. They have switched out who their left guard's going to be, because he went down in the last game with injury. So I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know. They have a lot of promising parts on their offensive line. They've invested a ton on their offensive line. They have parts of their offensive line that are good. Their right guard is showing in the most recent injury report as being hurt. And it really, in some ways, I'll go back to the Lions, kind of a back to the future thing. One of the best early seasons for the Texans was 2012. They had a big start of that season, and then they played 2 games in a row, with a Sunday game that went into overtime and a Thursday game against the Lions on Thanksgiving. And that injury report after that game was horrific, and the team was never the same after that. Well, this week's injury report is not great. Will Anderson Jr. Has an ankle. He did not practice today. The team's not been commenting very much on him. Nico Collins, there are reports that his hamstring's looking good, but he has not been reactivated off of the IR yet. So there's uncertainty, but any result of this game would not surprise me, because these teams play very hard. You guys have kind of a head start on kind of the rebuild, and people had their thoughts about what you guys were doing. but each year is different. Each game is different. The matchups are different. And, the Texans are getting healthy at some positions. They're really working on this offensive line issue. They've had 10 days or they will have had 10 days by the time this next game happens to get better and figure some things out. And they don't like some of the noise that's being said about them because there was all these ambitious views of how their offense was going to play with CJ Stroud. And he actually has done some pretty amazing things, given some of, the injuries and, having to switch guys out in the middle of the games. But, we'll see. I mean, we really don't know. Like, everybody keeps on saying we haven't seen the best of the Texans yet. They haven't shown consistently some of the things that they've been able to do in pockets, and their second halves of games have been kind of disappointing, possibly because, sometimes their defense has been playing pretty well and maybe they're not taking as many risks as they might do if their defense was playing poorer. That's a long answer.
No, you're good. No, information is good. I'm going to stick with the player you just mentioned, CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
How has he grown from in year two from year one, in your opinion? Some person that watches all the time, you watch all the games, you're invested, you're going to more than the stats. How has he grown as a player?
Well, I mean, I think part of it is, guys don't step into a situation and pretend like they are Mr. Man. So but guys gravitated towards him right away. Last year he wasn't named the starting quarterback until right before the season started. And some people are like, oh no, it's pretty obvious he's going to be the guy. Why aren't you saying he's the guy? And part of it was, a lot of that's marketing, but it would be easier to market, or, it'd be easier for our fantasy teams. And it's really, what the real situation is from the coaching perspective and from his perspective, he wanted to earn it, and he did earn it. And, there are other situations where rookies were kind of anointed that pretty early in camp and then didn't follow through on that. So, I mean, that's the way that they chose to develop CJ. Now, if you look at his game, the things that he does the best, other than just his, people gravitating to him as just a leader, is he is really, really accurate. Like, if he has any kind of time at all, he can throw darts. And that was actually the first thing that I noticed about him. The other thing is just how fast he learns things. It's like, I remember in his first camp, he was doing some stuff that looked very rookie, and then the next camp, I never saw him do that again. And he looked more composed than a lot of very experienced quarterbacks who have cycled over through the Texans over many, many years. You're like, this is really exciting. This year, he's had the bigger challenges because he's been facing some defenses on the road that have given him challenges. And then he had what I was telling you before was, the issues with, maybe the offensive line not giving him enough time and having people in his kitchen right away. And a lot of it was delays, things coming, or, rushes coming, not stunts, and then maybe unorthodox kinds of blitzes. And the offensive line didn't handle it very well. Sometimes you could question whether he was seeing where the ball was supposed to go. Sometimes you might question the play calling. It was like, well, does he have really good outlets? And he's seeing some things that their teams are challenging him on more. And he comes across as an extraordinarily sharp guy. And there is the point of view that even though the numbers may not be as good on some things as they were last year, the things that he's being asked to do is more. And he's wanted that. That's something that he's asked for throughout time. And, one of the things that stood out last year is, he was really good with his first read. Now they're kind of focusing on, okay, let's get beyond kind of first read things. Other thing that he's really good at is he's pretty good with his eye direction and directing where defenses are going to go. But this is going to be a slugfest. I I mean, really, the biggest fear in Houston is that CJ Stroud's going to get hurt before they figure out their offensive line things, and they just keep on hitting, like whatever you think about the Jets, their defense puts it on people, and you don't want to have that happen to you at MetLife Field when you're playing on cement.
Mhm.
So he survived that. Like, really, to me, I was looking at the Wednesday injury report to see if there was any surprise guys that got hurt. We weren't aware that they were hurt, but they're pretty quiet about like letting people know, injury status, which is what you're supposed to do.
Exactly.
Right.
Hold your cards close to your vest there.
Yeah, there were a couple of plays in that game where CJ Stroud was kind of slow to get up, and I'm sure everybody in Houston's holding their breath, like, please don't go down like this.
Well, and sometimes people have gotten pretty angry about it and kind of unfair about it, and I don't like to go into that too much because really, the team itself, they don't want the fans to go this way, and obviously, people are like, oh, we need to protect CJ. Well, the offensive linemen want to protect CJ. Now, if they're able to do that is a different question, and that's on the coaching staff to put people in good positions. If a guy's asked to be a starter, he's going to start, but if he's not capable of doing that, or they're giving him too much to do, then that's on the coaching staff to get somebody better at that position. And there's a lot of people, there's that tension between urgency and desperation, and you have to have right urgency to do stuff and not do like try to fix one thing and make another thing worse. And that is probably the hardest thing to do, particularly when you're switching guys out because of injuries during the game, and it happens for everybody. And some people are more prepared to do that than other people, and you just don't know until you do it. Like, some of these things are hard to test. Like, offensive line in particular is really hard to test. Like, let's say you don't have guys that are healthy and you're not really doing real hitting in training camp, and they don't have preseasons as long as they used to have them, and guys aren't in them very long during those preseasons anyway. So you are seeing if your offensive line can handle the load in real time, and hoping that your really good and promising quarterback doesn't get hurt in the meantime.
It's interesting you mentioned that because in our training camp, the Lions, they'll do a lot of scrimmages and there's a lot of contact in those, and we will have longer injury reports in training camp just because of that. But I think the side effect of that, the goal is when it's game time, when it's ready, you're gonna know if player A gets hurt, player B comes in, you're gonna know what strengths and weaknesses and work around that. So
Well, and it's easier when you have players that you have more experience with. Like, a lot of, they drafted 2 centers, that they were developing, and one can play guard. And, they had a very high level guard that they drafted in the first round who just has, has been snake bit with injuries and just hasn't developed the way that they want. And, it's really hard from the outside to know. Like, there's the injury report injuries, but at this time of year, nobody's feeling great. So it's hard to know what you're going to see sometimes on Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because you get spoiled when you see the same lines that like, oh, we're switching out one guy on the line, and sometimes that's hard to do when you're switching out a lot of guys on the line, especially in the center, like in center guard. That was a problem last year, and you could see that was a problem. And this year, it's been a bigger problem because people identified that was a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like you guys have very many healthy linemen right now at all. So it's interesting, the shuffle around.
Yeah, Christian Harris has been out pretty much the whole year, and he's a really promising guy that's pretty fast. I've heard that they're going to be getting more guys off of like that have been out that will be playing, but we'll see. I mean, I'm actually for this game more concerned about what's going to be happening on the defensive line. They're bringing some guys back that were injured. We don't know about Will Anderson Jr., and I got to tell you, in that Jets game, after he got his ankle twisted, that to me, that changed a lot of things in that game, where the defense was making Rodgers really nervous, and by the end of the game, he was throwing dots.
We're going to stick on the offensive side here. So, how has the addition of Joe Mixon improved the offense? As of right now, he has matched last year's rushing touchdown total of your top running backs, I believe.
Yeah, sometimes you see players that come through and they just have a way about them. And, some of them are famous players because they're fantasy football guys, and some of them aren't. But like Joe Mixon is a special guy. Like, if you've played with him in fantasy football before, he was pretty dependable guy. And just me watching as an NFL person, like, I really loved his ability to, if it's third and short or your goal line, he just finds a way. And he's already won the angry runner of the year deal. And yeah, a lot of blocking is, or a lot of the running game is like, how do you block it, and is your quarterback a threat? But then some of it is just, some running backs just have good want to, and he's a sharp guy, he's a good competitor, he's a good teammate, his teammates love him, and you can block it the way you want, but unless somebody has really great vision, it's not going to come through. And so far this year, when he's been healthy, he's been amazing. He has definitely stood out and has created a different kind of dimension for the team, because you can't just, assume that the running game is going to not do anything. And that assumption has been there for kind of a while. Like last year was a struggle. The year before, Dameon Pierce, was pretty much the whole show, but that was kind of more through just kind of personal effort, it seemed. But Joe Mixon seems to know the assignment and is really kind of a steadying player on that offense, that it depends so much on rookies and young players, that you need kind of like a steadying force that as they put in today's presser, that, he's willing to just call people out, including CJ, because he just wants everybody to be better. And when you have a team where people are honest with each other in ways that are respectful, that's what real teammates are about, where you know each other well enough, like brothers, where you can give each other a little bit of nonsense, and it's not taken in a particular way, because some places you can't be honest, or some places honesty isn't rewarded, and that can happen over time, because sometimes you can have kind of like a toxic positivity where you're supposed to be positive no matter what, and people are afraid of being honest about what's going on. And I don't see that with this team. Like, they definitely like good vibes, and who doesn't? But I think if you stay honest with each other for the purposes of making each other better, and that people know that, everybody has each other's back, like that's, as they say, football is a people business and a relationship business. And that's the most important part is, do people have trust in different aspects of what they're doing, that know that if we follow what we're supposed to do, then it puts us in the best possibility to win.
So much of what you're saying about your team and the philosophy rings true for the Lions. You have, a coach that's a good leader. DeMeco Ryans a very good leader, getting people that know football and can teach football, and the accountability, because that's what happened with the Lions. For so many years, the team just didn't feel accountable, and a lot of finger pointing, and just, it was a mess. And the Lions are on the right track. And I've heard a lot of comparisons between our two franchises, just the way it's built, and kind of.
Well, and also just a deep respect for football, like a deep respect for football. And everybody says it in different ways, but like the type of respect that we tend to like just in Texas generally. Like, we're going to put Dallas and South Oklahoma for the purposes of this discussion,
Nice.
because how they're structured isn't Texas football. Texas football is not run by like the owner like dabbling in picking players. Like, you're getting the best people in the best situations to make the best choices, and choices that people have reason to believe are in their best interests. And when that trust is very fragile. Like, you might have that trust for a while, and then you can have some things where that trust erodes over time. But real football involves football people put in the situations where they can thrive. So, and that is so delicate because, people come and go. So that's something that can disrupt a team. Like, if you're a successful team, people will cherry pick your staffs.
Mm-hmm.
A guy that's good at doing one thing may be put in a position to do something else, and it's not trustworthy, or people don't believe that the people in the building are supporting them. Because the hardest thing in sports is, in my opinion, that these jobs are so hard to get and keep. And so the finger pointing comes from just fear that you're not going to have a job, or where people aren't maybe treated well because they know that these jobs are so dear. And so it really takes a lot of effort to get the whole culture feeling like honesty is rewarded, and that everybody has the same goals, and that you have those kinds of connections where you don't feel like people are being selfish, but also knowing that people aren't just going to sacrifice you to the football gods and don't care. Like, there's kind of a DNA in Texan football, because like the idea of Houston Texans football, like, a franchise created from scratch, was, if you're creating a franchise from scratch and you don't, like, you're named after the people. Like, the team is named after the fans. Like, so when we say we are Texans, it's not just the team, but like, we are a people up into space and all over the globe and all that. So if you're being ballsy enough to name your football team about a people from Houston, which we really appreciate football, how are you going to structure it in a way that exemplifies the best of football? And part of that is creating a situation where people have deep care for each other, because it's kind of the Kubiak saying from back in the day, and that DNA kind of comes through D'Amico Ryans as well, which is, they don't care what you know unless they know that you care. And that can't be faked. Like, when somebody's faking that, or you feel it because you don't think that they're looking out for you. So like, at every level of this team, they are really making it so that they're trying to make it so that this is the place for football, and that the guys can focus on the football and keep the main thing, and know that they're going to be supported, not just as football players, but as adults and men, and treated that way. Because, sometimes this drives me nuts, just hearing fans talk about stuff, is sometimes people talk about it like, well, the head coach is the daddy, and this guy's the daddy, and these are the players that are being disciplined for doing. No, all of these people are professionals. It's like an F1 team. There are so many professionals at every level of the team that if they do their job right, it gets them in the best position to win. And if you're weak in a particular area, the rest of the people need to figure out a way not to make that a weakness anymore. And that involves so much trust, and a trust that has evolved over time. Like, for example, these days, everybody has more data on the players than they've ever had in the history of football. And they have monitors on so they can see how fast people are going. You can see it from any number of different ways. And the players need to be able to to trust the staffs that what they tell them about their physical condition won't be used against them. And that's a very, very deep level of trust, or that their personal information, if it got out there, might hurt them, that their personal information is treated in the way that the NFL wants you to treat that information. And to get that level of deep, deep trust in a team where these kind of jobs are hard to get and keep, it's a lot. Like, I've talked to NBA guys that like run teams, and they're like, yeah, I mean, the levels of complexity in the NFL are so much more than basketball because you have fewer guys. You know, it's easier to kind of like, okay, you either have the guys or you don't have the guys. There's lots and lots of people throughout the whole team that have to be on the same page. Now, can you win being weak in areas? Sure, because every team has whatever their weaknesses are that they have to work through. But you're just increasing your win probabilities by getting that deep trust. And it's hard to get, it's hard to maintain, and you can't, like, the teams that keep that for a long time are special teams, because that's hard to do. Like, you see it everywhere. You know, the Patriots are riding high, and then the Patriots are who they are now. They're not invincible.
I also think that, you mentioned that people from the outside, just, they don't understand why these professional athletes, they can't all work together. To me, I mean, they're making millions of dollars, but they're just like you and me. And a team job, Jacob and I work together. We know that, if the leader isn't chipping in and doing their part, then everybody else slacks off. And to a certain level, that's what happens
But
on
it's modeling behavior.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
modeling behavior. Like, the people who are in leadership positions need to model the behavior that they want to see.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
but that's hard because everybody has their different, like, one of the things that's really great about this particular team is DeMeco Ryans makes a big point of saying that he wants people to be themselves as long as they don't embarrass the team, which is a very adult way of talking about it. Because like, these people are not children. They have their own things that they care about, their own pushes and pulls in their own life. And they don't have to pretend to be somebody that they're not to, like, fit into some guy's idea of what the perfect football player is. Because, like, if one player pretends to be like JJ Watt, like, they're not going to be JJ Watt. Like, they're different personality types. But that when people come together and kind of take the best of what, everybody's individual shine, it makes for a better team. And then the other point of it that he keeps on emphasizing is that he doesn't need people to do extra. He needs them just to be their best selves, because they were chosen for a reason. And for most teams, in my opinion, most teams, things are about opportunity, and it's about staying healthy at the right times. And the margins between being a really successful NFL player and not being in the league at all are very thin. Like, one of the things I would encourage people to see is kind of Arian Foster's story. He was an undrafted free agent. He had kind of weird situations that happened to him in college that put him in that spot. He was very close to being not having an opportunity because he kept fumbling the ball. And then all of a sudden he didn't fumble the ball. And all of a sudden he was getting a bunch of touchdowns. And then all of a sudden he was putting, over 230 yards on the Colts and beating them week 1 of a particular year. So the just having those opportunities is such a big deal, and having people work together and finding the right guys to work together is a challenge. And this particular staff makes no excuses of like, well, this guy was acquired here and like, we really need our particular guys to. It's like, no, they're trying to make a situation where things fit the personnel that they have. And you have definitely seen that from your perspective of having a scheme, making the scheme work for the players that you have, for their strengths, and kind of minimizing their weaknesses, and then putting more and more on their plate as they can take more.
Yep. And I mean, we've just had the consistency of this coaching staff for 3 years. Luckily we hadn't lost Ben Johnson yet, so that's just makes the offense click, and you start seeing those plays. Yeah, I a lot of I really you're a good interview. I really connect with a lot of what you're saying, and I see football the same way. Just from and really in the last 4 years, we've seen successful football franchise. Lions have not had that, and when you see it, we've had Jacob and I talked on the show a lot of time about false hope. Like you go into the season, think this is going to be the year, and we'd have a few stretches where we'd be good, but then we just keep getting disappointed. But when you have the whole organization pulling in the same direction, it just,
You
even
can
when you slip
feel it.
up, yeah, it's totally different, and it's hard. What you're saying rings true. You don't have a lot of people doing CYA. They're not covering their butts. They are, doing the best, and the Lions are putting them in, key positions. And when you're in there, you're expected to do your job. And it's not.
And see, all of these things are knowable things, and you can talk all this stuff, but it's so hard to maintain, particularly if like a key guy goes down and it really is hard for you to replace that guy. It can erode confidence, and so it is the hardest thing to maintain in the world. It just is, but it's great when you see it.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. It's hard. I mean, you're going to hire someone for a position, right? I've been through a lot of job interviews. I've been a manager before. I've interviewed people. People seem great in an interview sometimes, and then you get them on the team, and you kind of see what they're all about. And I think that happens at a football level too. You get a guy in there, and then you find out this guy's a little more selfish than we thought coming in, or he has a different agenda than the rest of the team, and all of a sudden,
But I really don't. For most people that they bring in on this level,
mm,
you know, we are living in a time where by the time that guys are getting in the NFL level, they are so much more ahead of where they were before because the coaching at the lower levels is more involved. Now, the hardest thing now, in my mind, is not necessarily the character things, although sometimes there's all sorts of distractions. Um, I think a lot of it is the projection. That the college game is very different than the NFL game, in particularly with some positions over others. And so, how do you project linemen and develop linemen when they're getting in the NFL? And one approach maybe the Texans have been taking is maybe in more recent years getting guys that are from more developed programs. So, like you see what they can do on that level, and you can project them easier. But it's hard because of just we want this physical size because our data shows this physical size for this position tends to do better. And then we also need the ability to learn that position. And everybody learns in different ways, and different positions learn at different paces. And offensive line, for example, or quarterback, those are grown man positions. So developing those positions and doing it in a way that sets people up for success can be hard because you're playing games and all that. But I think that we both share the commonality that we shouldn't call ourselves bad football experts. We're experts on bad football, and
Okay.
we both want to become better experts on watching good football.
mhm.
And you get spoiled when you see it, like when you see stretches of time where people are doing things that you've never seen before. It's special, and you should cherish it in the moment because um I don't know if you've ever had that experience where you feel like you're in the zone, like it's not even like it's a feeling, you just are.
Mhm.
And then something happens, and then all of a sudden it's like being dropped from the sky, like
Mhm.
like a rock.
Yeah.
uh and nobody wants to have that feeling. If it was easy to stay in the zone, then everybody would just easily stay in the zone, and there's ways that people do that. But um when you see something special going on, you should, people like us, we don't take those things for granted.
That's great. Yep, you're exactly right. All right, Jacob, I'll let you ask this one.
All right. Let me skip through a couple of these. What do you think key to victory for the Texans is going to be this week?
Just playing their best football. Like, they haven't done it all together at the same time. Like, they've had some outstanding special teams weeks where they're making like really long kicks. The punts are going well. The punt coverage is going well. And then they've had weeks where it's like, what happened there? And on the defense, like the defense will play very well for a time and then, just have a busted play. The offense will score early and you're like, oh yeah, they finally have gotten their thing together where, they're just marching down the field and there's nothing that the defense can do to stop this. And then it's like somebody let the air out of the tire and then it's gone. So like they just have to play 4 quarters of football. And that's really hard when, this is going to be probably, if I'm guessing, one of the more physical matchups in the regular season.
Yeah, it will be. There's a thing called the Honolulu flu, and that's we're the Honolulu blue color, right?
Yeah.
So Honolulu flu. Up until the Texans game last week, every time the team played the Lions, they had lost the following week, and they attributed it to you're playing for 4 quarters, and you got to play tough football.
Well, and that was kind of the reputation of D'Amico Ryan's 49ers defenses. Philosophically, they want to put it on people and and they want to get interceptions and they want to strip balls. So this is going to be a game that I don't know what the keys of the game are. Like, I think it's just going to be like a slugfest, and then let's see if who gets on the other side of the slugfest and can take advantage of it. But all I know is I've been telling people for a while to go to their doctors and get their meds filled and stuff because this Texans team has had so many close games. And then the close victories have been amazing. Now, I can't say that I like the Packers loss. I was actually in Dallas, and my sister doesn't have like normal TV. And I'm like, I'd rather go to a bar anyway. And so I said, where should I go? And they're like, well, there's a really good Packers bar down the street. And then I'm like, I think I'd rather hang out with Packers fans than hang out with Cowboys fans just because of some of the logistics in this part of the world. And they were delightful people, as probably more delightful to me than they might be to y'all. But losing that game at the very end, that was not good. I did have a lot of shots set my way because I was the only Texan fan in this whole bar, but that's kind of fun.
Got to drown your sorrows there again. Yeah, we were counting on you guys to take the Pack down, and you let us down.
Well, I mean, it's a game of inches, parity league, and just one play this way, one play that way, and we can talk about scripts, that kind of nonsense. But yeah, I mean, you can't, like when players are like, you can't get too high and you can't get too low. It's like, yeah, because it's a long season. It's a real long season. And you just never know what will happen to a team. Like one team will be flying high and then something bad happens to a key player and then they're not quite the same. And, it's hard to fix things in season. Like the best teams are able to fix things in season and then kind of play stronger as you progress in the year. And for the Texans, that's going to be pretty difficult because, yes, they have more games against like the Titans and the Jaguars, but then they have a 10-game stretch where they're playing the Dolphins, the Ravens, and the Chiefs. Which, like, really, what did the Texans do to you, NFL, to make that happen?
Yeah.
Part of the schedule, but it's a test, and really, as you get in the playoffs, and then anything can happen, including good things.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, those are your tests during the season to get you ready for the playoffs, right? Because I mean, those are the teams you're going to be playing in the playoffs: Ravens, Chiefs. I mean, if you
and I think to be the best, you gotta beat the best. I know that's a phrase, but if you're being very real about it, some of the teams that got through the Super Bowl ended up having just kind of accidentally easy schedules during the season. Because, you can do projected strength of schedule, but actually the actual strength of schedule sometimes will tell you like, oh, wow, yeah, they had an easier road to get to the Super Bowl than this team over here did. And really, the most impressive Super Bowl teams are the ones that played a whole bunch of really great teams, and then it just didn't matter and they won anyway. And that happens less than the other way around.
And it also matters on when you play a team, right? I mean, if Nico doesn't go, your team's a lot different on offense than if he's there,
Absolutely.
right? And you're getting us without Hutch. So, there's different.
Well, and that's just so disappointing. I'm so sorry for that. And
That
who
happened in
knows?
Texas too. Happened in your state, and you let this happen.
No, that happened in South Oklahoma.
Oh yeah.
I'm washing my hands of all that. I don't have anything to do with those people up there that
Yeah.
don't believe in real Texas football. They have Jerry football, and I'm not a fan of Jerry football, except for I understand he throws really great parties. So I would go to, Jerry Jones' party, but I'm not really fond of his football philosophies or how much he decides that he makes it about himself, because that's just, I like to root for football.
Yep. All right. So this upcoming game, Lions, what makes you nervous about the Lions? What scares you most about this team that Texans are about to
Well,
face?
I got to tell you, and maybe this comes from my job, I'm not a fear baby. I'm not afraid. I don't get stressed about it. Like, these are grown man people doing grown man jobs, and if these teams played 10,000 times, there would be 10,000 different results.
Mm-hmm.
So, but clearly, the Lions are going to test the Texans' offense until the Texans' offense can show that they can handle stunts and blitzes. Like, CJ Stroud is getting like ridiculous amounts of pressure, and he's going to continue to get that until they can punish more teams for it. I'm just really, I can't say I'm afraid of it, but yeah, I wonder how both teams are going to come out of this game, because these teams will compete, and there may be parts of this game that look kind of ugly, where maybe there's some big plays that happen, but maybe there's some strips that happen, or maybe there's some weird special team things that happen, because both teams really care about that, because they're football teams and they care about every aspect of football and every way that you can compete. So I know some people are kind of like, oh, well, CJ Stroud, survived this game. It's like, well, he's a grown man. Part of that's on him. Part of that's on the line. Part of that's on his running backs. Part of that's on his tight ends. And, that he might not have like all the ideal pieces and parts in place, but who does?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They got to compete, and, nobody needs to be fear babies about football. Like, there's plenty of actual things to be, concerned about, I guess, like, car wreck or something, but like, like, you can't drive around the road like, oh, somebody's going to hit me. Well, I mean, yeah, it could happen.
Yep.
You just can't live your life that way. And that's no fun way to watch football. Like, oh, I'm scared that bad things are going to happen. Well, shoot, I have survived 2 decades of all sorts of crazy stuff I've seen on a football field. I am not afraid of one of the best teams, the NFC, competing against one of the best teams in the AFC, and I hope they get to do it again in New Orleans. That could be fun.
That would be fun.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally, I would make sure to make that as much of a Houston East experience that it could possibly be, but we'll see about that.
Yeah, you got a much shorter trip, I think, over to New Orleans and.
Oh yeah, and it's fun. I got to tell you, a New Orleans Super Bowl. Any Super Bowl would be great, but I've done it. I did the Beyonce Super Bowl in the biggest way you could possibly do it, and it took me about a month to recover. It was fun. Like, they don't shut their bars down. Like, their bars stay open late, and the parties go late, and then you're just like, and if your team's not in the Super Bowl, you show up on Sunday, and you're just like, stress. I mean, you're not sad. You're just kind of, you got to train for it. Like all of my sports training right now is just to make sure that I I can do all the stuff that I want to do football party wise. Like that's my job. Like, yeah, I can talk about the football, but my job is to enjoy whatever this journey we're on. And as you are in a history, it's hard to know what it is. Like this is part of like whatever whatever team ends up in the Super Bowl. Like there's this was the sad part of the season, and then this was and like you don't know what it is when you're in it, and when people are like, well, this is definitely going to happen. Like maybe, but I got to tell you, right is overrated. Like whether you were right about something in the past, so what? Okay, well, what's going to happen next? Like what's going to happen next, and what can you do about it? And for most of us, all we can do about it is like have a beverage, water, stay hydrated.
Nice.
All right, Jacob.
All right. Yep, one more. So
All right.
any predictions for the game? It doesn't have to be about the final score. It can be anything stat related or just anything that you think is going to happen. If you had to make a prediction about the game, what's something you see happening here?
I think it's going to be a weird game. Like Sunday night football games are weird anyway. And when you have two very physical teams, you're going to see some weird stuff go down. Everybody's going to pull out their extra stuff that they might have. And what I can guarantee you 100% is that tailgate's going to be bumping.
Yeah.
People show up early for that tailgate. There's going to be a lot of people out there. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of Lions fans because you guys were pretty excited about the season early. And in Houston, we have people from all over the country that live here, and they might have, like we have a lot of like dual fans because a lot of us, if you're a certain age, the Texans weren't your first team. That wasn't your choice. That was somebody else's choice. So we're making our own history, and there's a lot of transplants in the Houston area. So they might have their one team that they root for, and then they root for the Texans because it's kind of special rooting for the team in the place where you live and just being around, and people are uplifted by the good things that are happening. And we can't control that good things happen during the actual game, but what we can control is how fun the tailgate is. And it is like it's like nothing else because each tailgate's never the same thing. People bring different foods, and once it's at our table, it's Texan food because we have all the foods in Houston. We have all the beverages in Houston, and then any number of kinds of people show up. We've had former players, people with the team, longtime fans from decades past. New fans, our second generation of fans are now getting old enough that they're sentient to go to games their own selves, which is special for us because, we are creating this in real time. We are the first generation. And frankly, I would prefer that it was this year. I already went to Andre Johnson being the first Houston Texan inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, and that was an amazing experience. And the way that he put it to us is he was doing that for all of us. He was our first guy there, and the people, the players now, they got to watch this happening, and the players that played with him got to watch this happen, and they were a part of it. And it's nice to kind of go, yeah, this is what can happen. And he put the whole city on his back, and he still lives here. And it was special. And so he understands that he's making our history, and we're all making our history together. And I got to tell you, I was at I lived here during the time where the Rockets had their championships, and I've experienced the more recent Astros championships. And a Houston championship celebration, everybody's friends, and it's usually too hot to riot or something stupid like that. And everybody kind of gets along and has a nice time, and it's just a beautiful experience. And that is that is the beauty of the unifying nature of sports. And we can't make that happen every week because, you have to go through a whole season, but you get that kind of sensation in tailgates, and our tailgates in particular are some of the most generous experiences that I've ever seen. People just, people might have some hard things going on in their lives, but when they show up there and people love on them and they gas each other up, like, how are we going to do? And eat all the food and drink all the drinks and root their team on, and then hopefully come back out to the tailgate. It's like, wasn't that great? Let's pop some champagne. And I mean, the Texans had a playoff game this year, home playoff game, their first year, because of various accidents of the schedule. And like, we weren't, and that's how our year started. That's how our 2024 started. It started with a playoff victory, which that was a tailgate post game that historic. And then, we had Canton. And this season has been more of a challenge than some people thought. But as coaches say, every year is its own experience, and you can't count that the same things that went right for you last year keep on going right, because each year is different. The team composition's different. But it's real exciting, I gotta say. And I'm excited for you guys, because teams shouldn't have to endure bad football for too long. It hurts the soul, and it hurts the city.
Does. I'm with you. All right, Steph, before we get out of here, where can people find your stuff online, and what are you up to? What are you writing on right now?
Right now I'm just kind of picking my spots on how to help fans out. So like, you doing this podcast is going to be real excited to some of the people who are in the tailgate or want to come to the tailgate. And, I will tell you, Detroit fans who are listening, if you're going to be at the game, you're welcome to come to our tailgate. Or they have this thing in between NRG Stadium and the Astrodome called Boulevard, and they have different events there if you want to do things before the game. But the tailgate experience is special. A lot of the tailgates are welcoming to fans of other teams, as long as they're generally cool and good guests. And the main place that you see my stuff is on X, and I have a pinned tweet that says where our particular tailgate is, and you can find me on whatever socials by my name, at Steph Stradley. I don't think I'm going to be writing something this week, but you never know. But I put a lot of the content out on Twitter just because it's a real-time way to find out what's happening with sports, and you can kind of control your own experience by who you follow. And if you follow lots of really good people on Twitter, you can get a pretty good understanding of what's going on with a lot of different teams. And what I appreciate about the Lions is a lot of your OG fans in the digital world don't always write about the Lions anymore. They had to write about NFL in general, because at some point you can only write the same story over and over again about, like, the Lions are not good this year. But I'm excited for those people, because it's fun watching fun football. Like, it's the best, it's the best feeling in the world. Like when you see things working, whether it's defense or like any special thing, it's cool. I really enjoy it.
Yeah. We're living our best life right now, and it's good.
Enjoy that ride.
Yeah, thank you.
For sure.
All right, Steph, thanks for coming on, and maybe we'll see you in New Orleans in the Super Bowl, right?
Cool. That's it.